I can tell you about the first thing I remember. You want to hear that? Okay. My dad was a sawmill man, and we lived wherever the work was. Sawmill was way back in the hills of northern Mississippi. And it was an old barn. The first lumber they sawed while I was there was taken and refurbished this old barn for us to live in. That's where I was born.
Bill Goodwin grew up in a large family who never had much. His family constantly moved from place to place seeking work. To add to the family's struggle, Bill's father was not always the kindest man.
My dad went to town to sell their cotton crop. My mother gave him a little list. I'll never forget this. She gave him a little list of things like sewing thread, needles, and a thimble to push the needle through to patch her little bibbed overalls with, you know. Okay, he was gone for 3 weeks, and when he came back, he had nothing except a hangover, and he was abusive to my mother. I had 2 older brothers. One of them was 20 years old, and the other one was 16 at the time. I'm 9. They came out of the bedroom. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night when he got home. And he scolded them. Right back to bed they went. Well, I guess if I'd had a shotgun, I would have killed my dad. I probably would have. But I went out in the chimney corner outside, prayed to God. Just let me grow up to be a strong teenager and I'd change the family. This is the words I used. Okay, when I finished my little prayer, I went back in the house and I went between my mother and dad and pushed them apart. He was still beating on her with his fist. He went and got in the bed, covered his head up with a pillow. And everything was okay till next morning. Okay, and a week or 2 after that, he left us. There was nothing there. When times got bad, he got going. It's just the way it was.
Despite all of Bill's family troubles, his adolescent years were also filled with good memories. When Bill was 14 years old, he was the captain of a basketball team for school. Although the school was nothing special, a simple 2-room building, and the court made from compacted dirt, it is here that Bill would meet the love of his life. During one basketball game in particular, a few girls were standing by the sidelines to watch. By halftime, Bill's team was trailing behind by 2 points, but he was determined to win.
I got the guys huddled in the center of the court, talking to them. I said, look, fellas, we got to win this game. They said, well, Bill, we've lost before. It's no sin. I said, no, it's not a sin to lose, but this game we're not going to lose. I said, it's been my fault that we're where we're at now. He said, why is it your fault? We're a team together. I said, well, you see that little girl over there with the red dress on? Someday she'll be my wife. They laughed at, oh, come on.
Later on, when Bill was 18, he was drafted and sent off to training camp. After 17 weeks of training, Bill had 15 days at home before being sent off to war.
Okay, went over, fought World War II. I spent 9 months on the front line fighting. You understand what the front line is. I'm right up there in it every day. Okay, when the war ended there, within about 30 days, a little over, we was just doing like police work there in Germany. And then we shipped to Le Havre, France, and came home. It was a Delhi en route. Okay, we got home, and I had already learned that this delay en route meant we were going down to fight the Japs in the jungles and the islands. Had 30 days at home. And I had sworn that I'd never be married and fight in a war, because I'd helped maybe a half a dozen young guys in my arms when they took their last breath that had a family. This is my thinking, but when I got home, 6 days later, that beautiful girl, we got married. Okay, we were together for 66 years. I lost her, be 2 years this October. My wife and I had a great life. I'm not saying that we didn't fight a little bit, but we had a great life.
Bill began to share his World War II experiences only after his wife Gwen had passed.
You know, it would take some time to tell it all just like it was, and it's easy to get lost in it once in a while.
Bill was drafted in 1943 and finished his basic training on D-Day. By July 28th, he was on the front lines in Europe.
Okay, I missed a lot on this deal. I got to back up, and from Mortain, France is where I first went into battle. Okay, after this battle, we moved pretty fast to Paris. My outfit was liberated Paris. We were first in Paris. My squad was the first to walk through the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Okay, after Paris, we were first to break the Siegfried Line.
The Siegfried Line, which was also known as the West Wall, was a system of defensive positions that had been built along the western border of Germany. It utilized tank traps, which were commonly known as dragon's teeth. The dragon's teeth were extended several meters below ground and were designed to slow down and discourage tanks from funneling so that they could later on be destroyed by anti-tank weapons. The Siegfried Line had been the last major line of resistance against the invasion of enemy forces into Germany. During the winter of 1944, the once impenetrable line fell to the 4th Division.
Then we're into Belgium, through Belgium, the south end of it. I think I'm right about this, yeah. Wasn't much of Belgium that we fought in. Then there's Luxembourg. Well, Luxembourg is a small country. The city just about covers the whole thing. There's a lot of people there. We took that. Then here's the German border. And from all accounts, my squad is the first one to cross the German border. It's just out of Luxembourg and the German border. Okay, then what the Battle of the Bulge really got its name was that Hitler's bunch hit us hard. They took Luxembourg back. But in about a week, we got reinforced. We lost a bunch of men. We got new strength. We took Luxembourg back again, and we're back in Germany again. That's where we sat for like 3 months. I missed that part when I was going in.
After the success of D-Day, Hitler became desperate. On December 16, 1944, he launched a counteroffensive that was intended to drive all the way to Antwerp, Belgium. Hitler had hoped that by doing so, the Allied armies would be cut in two. The attack was initially known as the Ardennes Offensive, but because of the massive bulge the Germans had created in the American front line, it became known as the Battle of the Bulge.
This Battle of the Bulge, it's up and down the Rhine River. They call it the Rhine Valley, you know. One side, the Germans were on the other. But we're inland quite a ways most of the time, maybe a mile or 2 miles from the river. We were up and down this line, like a 150-mile stretch. I don't know how long this Battle of the Bulge was. There's different divisions and everything in here, you know. But when somebody get in trouble, we had to go dig them out. My outfit did. But this Battle of the Bulge was a mean thing. It lasted so long.
During his first few months in Europe, Bill acted as first scout.
I'm out a lot of times 1,000, 1,500 yards in front of the platoon or squad, whatever, and the second scout is halfway between me and them. If I spotted anything, the enemy or any kind of a setup that needs to be reported, I'd give a signal back to my assistant. He'd signal it on in, and then they'd take action from there, what had to be done. You know, it might be a tank out here ready for us, or see a group of guys with a machine gun. I did this for 3 months. Okay, my sergeant got wounded bad. They pulled me back to take over the squad. So I was squad leader from there on. The last 6 months of the war, I had 11 men under me. But in the time of that Battle of the Bulge, that thing lingered, you know, over 3 months. And they had the weather so bad, fog, rain, and snow. You know, supplies can't get to us. It's the worst winter that Germany had ever had on record that we were fighting at. But in that Battle of the Bulge, we were in there. I just looked that up yesterday. I have a problem pronouncing this word, the Hurtgen Forest. We were down to 9 men in a company of, I think it's 136, a full-strength company. I had, including myself, there was 9 men left in the company, and we're still trying to push ahead. I got wounded. I had to leave it. And one of the guys went with me, had something like a mile and a half to walk through this pine forest, and every time you cross a fire break they had in, you know, they'd open up on us with machine gun fire. Okay, I left 7 men up there, and they had their choice to go back with me or stay. They decided to stay. I was gone for 15 days. And they sent me back before I should have gone. I shouldn't have never been back, but you know, what is war? They needed me. We had a full strength when I got back, and no one that I knew. They all recruits right from the United States. Some of them only had 6 weeks of training. And can you imagine leading a crew that's only got 6 weeks of training? It wasn't easy. But after the Battle of the Bulge, things got better. We moved quite fast. This is what Patton wanted to do all the time, but couldn't do it. Tanks couldn't move. They'd sink in the ground. So we made it to the end of the war without losing very many people again. I didn't lose any from there on, but some of them did. Okay, I'll tell you a little incident about after the Battle of the Bulge. They sent my platoon, which I wasn't in charge of the platoon, but I'm part of it. We were like 3 miles out in the front of the rest of the division in this open valley. You could see this back where they were and where we were at. We dug in for the night. And just before sundown, I had to make a 3-man patrol and see what's out in the wooded area. And on the way out, it was a dug-in place, and a German stuck his head out, and I went around to the side and come back around, and I gave him a chance to come out. Couldn't hear nothing, so I threw a hand grenade, but out he shot 2 guys. I captured 2 here. We went a little ways, and there was a trench for fighting, you know, and they had a pillbox dug in here, and it's camouflage. You don't see this. Small pine trees around. I walked up to this, and this young soldier, German, had his rifle pointed right on me, and I'm close as here to you, toy. And I got mine on him. He drops down in the trench, and I dropped down on behind the bank that they'd piled up here. You couldn't see fresh dirt. It was camouflage. You didn't even notice it. But anyway, I started throwing hand grenades. That's one thing I always did. I carried 4 hand grenades hanging on my belt. And moving down this trench at the time, and the other 2 guys was laying flat on the ground all the time. But I got their hand grenade. I throwed 7 hand grenades, and that's all we had, the 3 of us. The last one, a white flag come out. I didn't even know there was a pillbox there, but it's come out with a white flag. Here come marching 30 out of there, so it's 32 altogether. I had a couple of big high-class officers, German officers, you know. So we took them back to the platoon, which is 150 yards away from us this time. Okay, I went back to the platoon. Here's these 32 prisoners. There was no problem with them whatsoever. We shook them down, took any equipment off of them they had, which they didn't have any. They left it behind. They were ready to give up, just tell you the truth. Next morning, we had called in, you know, for someone to come take them off our hands. We can't send somebody back to take them back to headquarters, you know. So they had a special team for this. It was 6 guys come with their automatic weapons and everything, you know. It was taking them back. Okay, it was like level land out here for a quarter mile. And then it dropped off like this. And when they got there and went down this hill, all hell broke loose. Machine gun fire, you know. I told my platoon leader, I said, something ain't right. He said, well, it says, it's okay. I said, no, it's not okay. I said, myself and these 2 guys that were with me captured these 32 German prisoners. No problem whatsoever. I said, now they down here, and there's nothing else out there to be fired at. I said, I'm going, I'm taking my squad. I did, I took my squad. I went down there where they were, and these 6 guys said these prisoners tried to get away, attack them, this and that. That did not happen. I put them under guard then. I took them in instead of the prisoners. 2 of them was still alive, the rest of them dead. Now, you know, it was war, but we're not supposed to do this. And I didn't allow it to be done. They went to prison. They come back on the boat with us. This was shortly before the war ended. They were in prison over there, but when we came back, they came back on the boat with us, but they was under guard all the time. I really don't know what they did with them, but it would be something like 30 years. Now, you hate to do this to your own people, but they asked for it. This is just the kind of person I am. You know, I know right from wrong. So there was a lot went on in the war. It was dirty, ugly, nasty thing, but it was the place to be at the time. I wouldn't change it for nothing.
The Battle of the Bulge ended on January 25, 1945. It marks the last major German offensive during the war. After crossing the German border, Bill would soon come face to face with the pain and suffering the Nazis had inflicted upon millions of Europeans. Auschwitz was originally a concentration camp used to detain Polish citizens after Poland had been annexed by Adolf Hitler in 1939. However, Hitler would soon declare the final solution as an official Nazi policy. The final solution was a euphemistic term that was used to disguise Hitler's true goal, the extermination of all Jews in Europe. The exact date of when Nazi Germany decided to implement the final solution is unknown, but as a direct result, Auschwitz became the largest and most infamous death camp in history.
I think that's right, Osmond. Anyway, it's evidently the largest concentration camp in Germany. We went in there on foot. As we're going in, here's a block wall. It's about a 20-foot square thing. It didn't have a roof on it. And it's up, I don't know, 8, 10 feet high. It did have a door in it, but it was closed and locked. And it says off limits. Well, I was curious to know what's in there. And there was a ladder sitting nearby. I got it, leaned it up there and walked up. And it was bodies dumped in there. And they're just skin and bone. People that starved to death. Okay. This is sickening to see.
As the end of the war approached, the Allied armies began to close in on Nazi Germany. Because of the Soviet Army's large-scale offensive in the east and the Allied landings in the west, Himmler, who was the head of both the SS police and all the death camps on the Eastern Front, ordered the destruction of anything that could be used as incriminating evidence against the Nazis. Soon after, over 50,000 prisoners from Auschwitz were ordered to evacuate to areas that were still under German control. The Nazis thought they needed the prisoners to maintain war production. They also believed the prisoners could be used as a bargaining piece to ensure the survival of the Nazi regime. Those that were deemed too weak to make the journey were left behind.
But it went on in, we did, and the people coming out of the place as we went there, you know, they opened the gates so on, let them out, because they knew that that was the end for the people there, you know, to keep them under gun or under control. Okay, they come walking out, some of them, that you wondered how in the world they could even walk. It was so pitiful to see. Nothing but skin and bones. People starved to death. And it was like they'd get the potato peelings maybe. I guess more nutrients in the peelings than there are the other, but they wouldn't get enough of it to keep them alive hardly, you know. They didn't. I really don't know what they had to eat. It didn't look like they'd had anything for 6 months, to tell you the truth. It was terrible to see. Okay, before the day's gone, a train come moving in with boxcars, like they'd haul cattle in, loaded these people up, took them someplace for treatment. I don't know where they took them to, but there was thousands of them. I don't know, it affects your own life for a while. You know, it was hard to just live that down, seeing what it did right there in the concentration. I don't know how any human beings can treat people in such manner as that. I don't know how it can happen. But you got to go on. Whatever happens, whatever you see, you got to be ready to fight. So that's what I tried to do all the time.
Before the war ended, Bill would make several three-man patrols in Germany.
Okay, about 2 hours before sundown, got an order to the company to send a 3-man patrol across this field and see what's over there. Well, I was nominated for this, and I refused. My platoon leader, he says, Sergeant Goodwin says, you can't do that. I said, I just did. I said, I've made several patrols and never questioned it, come back alive. Made a 30-man patrol that I didn't like, but we did it, come back with a lot of information. He said, yes, you did. He says, now you refusing to do this 3-man patrol? I says, I am. He said, well, why? I says, the war will soon be over. I just figured it was. I says, in a few weeks, it'll be over. And I want to go home alive, not in a box. I said, that's suicide crossing this field. He says, I'm going to give you one more chance. You want to do it or not? I said, I'm not going to do it. Okay, this order came from regimental headquarters, full colonel. He's the one that called out for the patrol to be made. So I had to talk to him. He's 20 miles away, but I talked to him on the radio. He says, Sergeant Goodwin, he says, is this true, what I've got on you? You refused to hold a patrol? I said, yes, sir, that's it. He says, you know you can be sent to prison for 30 years. I said, well, maybe I'll be alive in 30 years. I'm not crossing the field.
After Bill's superiors finally consented to his refusal, 3 other men within the same platoon were picked to carry out the patrol. 2 out of the 3 men were killed. The 3rd man was held prisoner for 3 weeks before he was given back.
Okay, I'm expecting any day to be called up for the punishment. But went on to the end of the war, and about 3 weeks after the war was over, it lasted another 6 weeks, but about 3 weeks after the war was over, they split the whole regiment up. Squads go here and there to different towns, you know, just like police work.
One day, a man in a jeep arrived at camp requesting for Sergeant Goodwin. The regimental commander had requested to have a talk with Bill.
Okay, we rode for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. He pulled in and stopped. Okay, the building where the commander was in was like, I don't know, 100 yards away, something like this, from where he parked the Jeep. Well, he came out the door, and this driver, he says, that's the colonel you want to see right there. I said, maybe I don't want to see him. He said, well, he's the one that gave the order to pick you up and bring you in. Okay, I walked up in about 10 feet of him, and I stopped, saluted him, gave him my name, rank, and cell number. And okay, I was just standing here. I didn't know what to do, tell you the truth. He come walking towards me. And as he got approaching to me, he had his hand out like this. He says, Sergeant Goodwin, we had hands, and he was squeezing my hand real tight. You know, it's like affection. He says, you know, you could have been in a lot of trouble. I said, yes, sir, I know that. Refusing in time of war, you know, you don't do that. But he says, you're the only one that knew what the hell was going on out there. He says, you're free to go home to your family, your pretty girlfriend. See, I'd mentioned this. Somebody had got this to him. Said you did the right thing.
Although Bill entered World War II as a humble Southern farm boy, he more than proved himself during battle.
Yeah, a lot of people think that maybe I did more than I actually did. I did. There was so much I went through.
Because of Bill's courageous actions during the war, he received numerous military awards, 4 of which would be Bronze Stars.
You know, I can't take credit individually for the Bronze Stars. No, this is for major battles that you fought in. I had a lot to do with winning those things. I could put down a lot of lead.
Originally, the Bronze Star was awarded to anyone in the military for heroic or meritorious deeds during military operations against an armed enemy. In 1947, though, the opportunities for earning the Bronze Star were expanded. Any member of the United States Army who were mentioned in orders after December 6, 1941, or anyone whose merit could be proven in ground battle before July 1, 1947, could be rewarded with a Bronze Star. It is the 4th highest individual military award and the 9th highest by order of precedence in the U.S. military. Bill was rewarded 4 Bronze Stars for participating in combat at Mortain, France, St. Quentin, France, the Battle of the Bulge, and an unknown battle.
Then the Battle of the Bulge, of course. Then from there, there's one that says unknown, and I can't tell you, but it was war all the time, tell you the truth. You get in these major battles, it's all heroic. It is if you come out alive. You're a hero. I guess that's what I've been called. I resent it a little bit, but you know, I did what I had to do.
Bill would also receive 3 Purple Hearts. The Purple Heart is a military decoration awarded in the name of the President to members of the armed forces who were wounded while in service. It can also be awarded to the next of kin in the name of those who were killed in action.
I got discharged pretty early because all this stuff counted as points for me. I got out ahead of guys that had been in the Army for 5 or 6 years. I was only in 22 and a half months. But I built points by different things.
After being discharged, Bill had thought he would have to fight in the Pacific Theater, but on August 9, 1945, the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. 6 days later, Japan surrendered and the war was over.
That's been my motto all my life, is to do for others. Like, where can you find a teenager that'll do what I did?
When Bill was 9, he had prayed to God to become a strong teenager. He not only became a strong teenager, but he also became an even stronger man.
Kids, I've been the head of a house, this is what I call it, for 78 years. Can you imagine that? Put food on the table, took care of people, my own people, raised my family. Now I'm just got myself, and that's it. And I got 1 great-granddaughter and a great-great-grandbaby, and that's about it. I've come a long way. Been a rough road, but I've had a good life. I have enjoyed what I've done. Here's what I try to do daily, is treat people right around me. This is the main #1 thing. I love people. Since I lost my wife, I'm outgoing. I go from one place to another, and anywhere I go, it's a blessing the way people treat me. It is. So that's just about the history of my life.
Is this the first time you've met her?
Yes.
Yes. What is your first impressions of each other?
Well, she's a sweet lady, yes.
He was taller than I thought he would be,
We
to
get
be
along
honest.
great so far. I mean, I've only known her a few minutes, you know. Maybe we'll get to know her more.
Taking this veterans documentary class has personally changed me so much. Beforehand, I knew that veterans should be respected, but now I truly understand why. Our veterans sacrifice so much for us. They potentially lay down life and limb in order to protect our rights and our freedom. War is truly devastating, but born from its carnage and destruction is the human will to love, to live, and to survive. Those who lived during World War II belong to the greatest generation in history. By recording and documenting their stories, I hope that their extraordinary lives will be preserved for future generations. I'd be lying if I said that the process had been easy, but the final product is well worth any anxiety or stress I've experienced. I've known Bill for less than a year, but in that time we became close friends. Without a doubt, he is one of the kindest, bravest men I have ever known. It has been a privilege to make this documentary of his life. I can only hope that I've made him proud in the way that I brought together his story. And Bill, I want you to know that even though you might not consider yourself one, you are a hero to both this nation and to me personally. And I also want you to know that you are loved and cherished by everyone who is fortunate enough to be in your life.